Picture this. Two 22-year-olds walk across a graduation stage on the same day, in the same cap and gown, with the same GPA. One of them spent 4 years memorizing formulas, showing up early, doing extra credit, and getting gold stars from professors who told them they were destined for greatness. The other spent those same 4 years building a small web app nobody asked for, cold emailing strangers on LinkedIn, and getting rejected more times than they can count. 5 years later, the straight-A student is still waiting for a promotion that keeps slipping away, while the so-called mediocre student is running a 6-figure freelance business from a laptop in a coffee shop. What happened? The answer isn't luck, and it isn't unfairness. It's that these two people were playing two completely different games with two completely different scoring systems, and only one of them figured that out in time. That's what we're unpacking today, because understanding this one shift in how the world actually pays you might be the single most valuable financial lesson nobody ever taught you in a classroom. From the time we're 5 years old, we are trained by an institution built entirely around effort. School rewards you for showing up. It rewards you for trying hard, for following instructions, for turning in your homework on time, for coloring inside the lines, literally and figuratively. A kid who studies for 6 hours and gets a B+ is praised more than a kid who studies for 30 minutes and gets an A, because the entire architecture of education is designed to measure and reward input. Attendance counts, participation counts, effort counts, and for 12, 16, sometimes 20 years of our lives, we are conditioned to believe that this is how the world works, that if you simply put in the hours, if you're diligent, if you're a good little soldier, the rewards will follow proportionally. It's a comforting idea. It's also almost completely disconnected from how the market, and specifically the labor market, and the economy at large, actually functions. The market does not care how hard you tried. This sounds harsh, and honestly, it is a little harsh, but it's also liberating once you internalize it. The market, whether that's your employer, your clients, or the customers buying whatever you're selling, is transactional in a very specific way. It is exchanging money for value received, not money for effort expended. A financial analyst who builds a model in 2 hours that saves a company $2 million gets paid for the $2 million, not for the 2 hours. Meanwhile, someone who spends 80 hours a week grinding away at a task that produces no measurable value for anyone gets paid very little, no matter how exhausted they are at the end of the day. This is the outcome-based economy, and it is the water that every working adult swims in, whether they realize it or not. It's why two people with the same job title, the same number of years of experience, and even the same number of hours logged can have wildly different incomes. One of them is producing outcomes the market values. The other is producing effort the market simply does not price. Now let's talk about why this matters so much for how you think about your career and your money, because this isn't just a motivational idea, it has very real, very practical implications for how you build wealth. Consider the concept of skills-based earning, which is really just the modern, more honest version of the old idea of a trade or a craft. In a skills-based earning model, your income is not tied to your job title, your degree, or your tenure. It is tied directly to a specific demonstrable capability that solves a specific, valuable problem. Think about a freelance copywriter who can write an email sequence that generates $300,000 in sales for a business. That business doesn't care whether the copywriter finished college. They don't care how many hours it took to write those emails. They care about the number the campaign generated, and they will happily pay a premium for that skill again and again, because the outcome speaks for itself. This is fundamentally different from the traditional employment model many of us grew up expecting, where a company pays you a salary largely based on tenure, credentials, and time served, almost like a modern extension of that old-school report card. This shift has enormous implications for something every American thinks about constantly, and that's financial security. If you're relying purely on effort and loyalty within a traditional employer relationship, you are, whether you like it or not, at the mercy of decisions made far above your pay grade. Layoffs happen not because employees weren't working hard, but because the market outcome for that company or that department changed. You can max out your 401k contributions every single year, show up early, stay late, and still find yourself out of a job because the business unit you worked in stopped producing outcomes the company valued in a shifting economy. This is not a moral failing on the employee's part. It's simply proof that effort alone was never the actual currency being measured. The people who tend to weather these storms best, who tend to bounce back fastest after a layoff or a market downturn, are the ones who've built a portfolio of transferable, outcome-producing skills, the kind that can generate value in more than one context, for more than one employer, or even independently as a freelancer or business business owner. This is also where the psychology gets tricky, because unlearning the school mindset is genuinely uncomfortable. It means accepting that working long hours on the wrong things will never be rewarded the way working focused hours on the right things will be. It means understanding that a FICO score, a strong credit history, an emergency fund, and consistent investing in a Roth IRA or a taxable brokerage account are all outcomes of decisions, not rewards for good intentions. The IRS doesn't care that you meant to file your taxes correctly. Your credit score doesn't care how hard you tried to pay your bills on time if you were consistently a few days late. Outcomes are what get measured, recorded, and ultimately rewarded or penalized everywhere in adult financial life, not just in your paycheck. So what do you actually do with this information? The first step is to audit how you're currently spending your effort and ask honestly whether that effort is being converted into a measurable, valuable outcome for someone willing to pay for it. If you're an employee, that might mean identifying the 2 or 3 things your role actually gets evaluated on, the metrics your manager reports up the chain, and directing your energy disproportionately toward those, rather than spreading yourself thin trying to look busy. If you're building a side business or considering freelance work, it means getting brutally clear on the specific, sellable skill you're offering, and constantly asking whether that skill is something the market is currently, actively willing to pay a premium for, because markets shift, and a skill that was valuable 5 years ago isn't guaranteed to remain valuable today. It also means investing in skills the same way you'd invest in a stock, evaluating the potential return before you commit your time, rather than assuming that time invested automatically equals value created. And here's the part that ties it all back to your bank account directly. Every dollar you eventually invest, whether into a 401k, an IRA, an index fund, or your own business, is downstream of this exact principle. Compound growth doesn't reward good intentions either. It rewards consistent, correctly directed inputs over time, which is really just outcome thinking applied to your money instead of your labor. The habit of asking, is this producing a real result, rather than, am I working hard enough, is the same mental muscle whether you're evaluating your career, your side hustle, or your investment portfolio. So here's the real takeaway, and it's worth sitting with. School spent years training you to believe effort is the currency of success, and that belief isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to unlearn it. The market, your employer, your clients, and the economy at large all pay for outcomes, for value delivered, for problems solved, not for hours logged or intentions meant well. The moment you stop asking, how hard am I working, and start asking, what measurable outcome is this effort actually producing for someone who's willing to pay for it, is the moment your income, your career, and honestly, your entire financial trajectory can start to shift. Effort still matters, don't get me wrong, because outcomes rarely happen without it, but effort is the input, never the currency. Once you start getting paid like the market actually pays, and not like your 4th grade teacher graded, everything else, your savings rate, your investing timeline, your entire path to financial freedom gets dramatically easier. And that right there might be the most important lesson your report card never taught you.